Hello, good evening, and welcome everybody to Henry Weston's Old Mate, the podcast. Tonight I am joined by Jack Percival. Good evening, Jack.
Hiya.
How are you doing, mate? Good to, well, firstly, thanks for coming in. It's always good to have someone new on the podcast. While we're at it, should we just get you to just introduce yourself, Jack? You'll be able to do it better than I will, so go ahead, mate.
My name is Jack Percival. I live in Chipstead in sort of the south of England. I'm the course manager at Chipstead Golf Club, but I also run a homeless charity called Percy's Homeless Hub. We provide outreach to rough sleepers and those in need, hot meals and hot drinks and various essential packs. We run some pretty cool big projects around Christmas time.
Fantastic. And I suppose me and you will be fully aware, being the outdoors professionals that we are, this time of year, it must be particularly important to really push for the warm weather gear for the homeless community and obviously the hot food and drinks, mate, yeah?
Yeah, that's why I think I'm probably well supported by greenkeepers, because they know how cold it gets and they know what it's like to be out in the weather all day. A lot of us have to go home and in the warm, but I think a lot of greenkeepers can relate because they understand the cold a bit better.
Yeah, I mean, I can certainly appreciate it. I was snug in my tractor for most of today, and then I went out cutting semi-rough for the last couple of hours of the day, and I got home and literally had to sit on the radiator for half an hour to get warm again. But I've got two questions just to start the podcast, Jack, and one that I'm sure is an obvious answer when you tell me, but why Percy?
My surname's Percival, so for a little bit was Percy, so I just put two.
Yeah, I should have realised that, shouldn't I? Well, that's cleared that one up. And the next obvious question is, why do what you do? Because obviously you're a dad, you're a course manager, both full-time professions, but you find time in your life to provide a service, fantastic service for the homeless community. So I'd just like to know what triggered that in you to do what you do.
So basically, when I was growing up, when I was 16, 17, I wasn't the best behaved child around. And I was a little bit naughty and found my way doing things I shouldn't be doing. And I ended up homeless myself for a little while. I was homeless for 6 months when I was 17. And I spent some time doing some sofa surfing and a couple of nights out on the street. And I got to experience it for myself. Unfortunately enough, I was taken in off the street by a very sort of close family friend, or one of my friends. Their mum took me in off the street and sort of gave me a big kick up the arse and got me a job and took me in and sort of showed me the things that I should have been doing rather than what I was doing. And fortunately, about 3.5 years ago, she passed away unexpectedly. And I'd always been doing bits for the homeless, but I wanted to do something big within her memory. So I took it upon myself to organise a big feed, because how the charity started, we started from 6 bottles of water and 6 sandwiches, and I used to get the bus into Croydon at Christmas Eve and hand them out. And then the following year, after the first time I'd done the sandwiches, I said, right, what happens if I can get some donations together and we can stand at the corner on East Croydon? And it just sort of blew up, and it went from a couple of people coming down and helping to being absolutely blown away with donations. And as the time's gone on over the years, we've sort of developed it to become a little bit more professional and a little bit more organised, and we've got numerous amount of donations, but they're all the same donations. It's all the same, so we can give everyone all of the same thing rather than going, we've got 1 sleeping bag and then we've got 2 of these. So we've sort of been able to really make it really more professional and more organised over the years.
Yeah, and I suppose being of the generation you are, you've grown up with social media and iPhones and iPads, and you're able to sort of get that message across easy. I don't know if that's the word, but to reach a greater audience.
I was in a way, but I posted on social media and I didn't think I would get anything from it, and then all of a sudden it went berserk, and even still now, like I get messages and it would be someone that lives in Newcastle, but they'll be a greenkeeper, and they'll message me and say, oh, by the way, mate, I bought someone a sandwich and a coffee today. This was inspired by you. And I think to myself, wow, like if I'm just doing that as a very small organization and we go out and do small things compared to massive charities, if I'm inspiring people that are 300-400 miles away and they're giving out hot drinks and meals to homeless people, I'm doing that just on social media. And social media to me is a massive tool in order to raise donations and to raise funding. And I'd say 99.9% of my donations come from social media. So
yeah, I mean that is the power of social media, isn't it? I mean, I remember last year. I can't remember exactly how long I've been following you on social media, but I remember last year one of your photos of the Amazon deliveries, and obviously you posted one this week as they start to roll in. And I would almost say that wouldn't be possible without the likes of Twitter and Facebook, because you'd be making phone calls and sending letters out, and you just wouldn't be able to get that reach, would you? So I think you've kind of answered the next point I was going to go on to, and I was going to ask, when you started, you say you started with 6 bottles of water and 6 sandwiches. Did you ever think it would come to what it is now?
I didn't know. I didn't. I've always cared about homeless people because I was homeless myself, so I can relate and I understand what they're going through, and I can. That's why people go to me like People always say to me, "Wow, like how do you just engage with them so well? Like you just talk and like it just flows, and they really respect you, and they look up to you type of thing." And it's nice now we've built up such a good like base or relationships with homeless people in Croydon. We can walk up to them and they can see us and they smile and they're like, "There's Jack," because they know we're going to look after them. And as much as it's tough for them and it's tough for people that are gonna try and do stuff for homeless people, but for us, we can walk into Croydon and we see homeless people and they're like super excited to see us, so it's really rewarding. And we've built up this fantastic relationship, and we're hoping that it will keep evolving.
Perfect. Well, I mean, long may it continue. But you mentioned that you were briefly homeless, 6 months, you said, before you got taken in. What time of year did you find yourself struggling for a bed?
Sort of very, very early January. So I done the snow, I done the frost, I done the rain. So I experienced it. I don't know how I managed to even survive it, really, because if anyone that knows me, I'm always moaning I'm cold, or if I'm out on the course, I'm always wrapped up. Like last year, I think I cut fairways and I wrapped a sleeping bag around me because I was so cold.
Yeah. I don't fish, but I've cut fairways wearing all-in-one fishing gear in the past, and still been bloody freezing. So I wanted to move on next to obviously. People who will know me, we don't know each other very well. Jack, you might not know the direction of a lot of my previous work. I'm a recovering alcoholic, and a lot of my podcast work and blogging is based around alcohol or addiction and recovery. And I would assume, or wouldn't assume, I'd know that a lot of people who find themselves on the streets will be there not through choice, and more than likely, you described yourself as, let's say, a naughty child who ended up on the street for reasons of misbehaviour, shall we say. But a fairly large percentage of people who find themselves on the streets will be there because an addiction to a narcotic or alcohol was my case, will have driven them to the point of either financial ruin, I imagine, or the point where their other half will have potentially kicked them out, or they may have walked out because of the situation at home. Is that what I would like to put a number on it? Would you say 1 in 2 people are on the streets due to addiction, or is that a little bit?
I mean, I work with a lot of people that do have addictions, and I always say, like, because some of the charities, they won't help people if they've got an addiction, or they won't help them unless that they're showing signs that they're sort of coming away from an addiction. So I like to help the unhelpable. So it's the ones who are using hard drugs and drinking quite heavily. They're the ones that I want to help. And I always tell them, no matter what you've done in life, you always deserve a hot meal and clothes on your back, no matter whether you're smoking crack or injecting heroin. As horrible as it sounds, I like to work with the people that people turn their nose up at them, or they just label them as an addict, or because everyone's got their own way of dealing with things in their life or dealing with the pressures in life. And I've spoke to a lot of users, and they all say, like, Jack, we're out here for 10, 12 hours a day before we go into hiding and get warm. And sometimes doing drugs is a way to make them feel warm, or to make them feel loved, or is a way to block everything out. So I can sort of sympathize with them, and I look past it. I look past the addiction, and it's something that it bothers me, and it frustrates me that there's not enough being done in order to help them. But back to what you were saying about how people can turn homeless. Whenever I do I've done a few sort of presentations and after dinner stuff. And I always say, like, you can turn homeless for any reason. You could have a good job, you could have a mortgage, and you could lose a job, or you could split up with your partner, or something could happen that could lead you to being on the streets. I've met some really, really intelligent people, or people that was previously wealthy and ended up on the streets. I worked with a guy that was a therapist, and then he used to drink because he used to listen to so much hard-hitting stuff during the day, and his drinking took over, and then he just ended up homeless. So it can happen to anyone, and the audience that I try to engage with, or to teach them about homelessness, are the ones that sort of don't really want to listen to it, or have always, like, just never understood it. So I come in with the facts that it can happen to anyone.
Yes, and I think where you are, sort of Croydon way, is homelessness a big issue in your local community?
So I know of, off the top of my head, 20 rough sleepers that I could name by name that I know that are legitimately homeless in Croydon. We've got a lot of people that I work with, or that come to our events, the homeless events, that they have a home and they have a roof over their head, but what they have in their house, they might as well be homeless, because they've got a roof, but inside their house they got nothing in the fridge. I've worked with some people, and I know a few people that barely have running water. So they might as well be homeless. So there's hundreds and hundreds of unseen homeless people, or not actually homeless, or wouldn't be labelled as homeless, but they're still technically homeless because they don't have the access to facilities, or the access to food, water, heating, or their house isn't fit enough to even live in. But I know, like I said, I know at least 20 rough sleepers that I could name you that are definitely homeless in Croydon.
Wow.
You look at that over a nation, there's thousands and thousands of rough sleepers. And even sofa surfing, you've got people that sofa surf and sleep in their car that are homeless, but they don't sit on the streets and beg. If you actually added the numbers up, because as soon as you say homeless, people just think, oh, someone's sitting outside the train station with an empty cup looking for coins. It's not. It's the people that are just fallen out of the system, or have got stuck, or they're just too embarrassed to ask for help. It's you can be homeless but have a house. I've met some real hard hitting stories or characters that I go home and all I do is think about, and it bugs me because I can't help them, or it bugs me that we're not doing enough as a community to help these people, because they're just so easily forgotten about, and people just turn their nose up. Because I always say we forget, we take small things for granted, like we can open up the fridge and see a fridge full of food, we can turn on the tap and hot water comes out, we can put the heating on when we're cold. And we actually put a guy, we work with a regular homeless guy. I've been looking after him for about a year now, and we put him into a hotel last month. It's something that we'd never done before. We had the funding to do it, so we put him for a 2-night stay. We couldn't afford much more, but we put him for 2 nights in a local hotel. He walked into the hotel, and the first thing he pointed out was, he was like, oh my God, there's shower gel, there's shampoo. Then he's picking up the TV remote and he's dancing around the room. How do I work the TV? How do I work the TV? And it's things like that we take massively for granted, that we can just come home, we can put the sports channel on, or we can put the radio on. This guy was ecstatic because he picked up a remote. And that for me makes me smile. And I go home and it's all I can think about. And that for me is like, that beats anything in the world. That beats any pleasure in the world, is putting a smile on someone else's face. And that's what I take massive pride in doing.
Yeah, I mean, anyone who follows your social media, I was aware of that story you just mentioned, and it makes us who see the pictures smile. Obviously, does not as much as you. Obviously, you're the feet on the ground, putting the hard work in. But you mentioned that anyone could sort of find themselves homeless. So I was just wondering if, you know, I don't know. Is it fair to say potentially a higher or majority of people who find themselves homeless might be male, or a higher percentage would be male?
No, we cater for women as well because we do sanitary products. We give ladies underwear. We do, so we set up like these essential packs, and they've got basically everything you would need to last you
Yeah.
sort of a couple of weeks: socks, pants, toothpaste, toothbrushes, wet wipes,
Yeah.
deodorant, anything you can think of. We name it, and we do sort of 20 ladies ones. So they've got your
Okay.
towels, they've also got condoms in there. Like a lot of people
Yeah.
don't think about stuff like that, but it's something that we do, and we just do it. And a lot of people don't think about it, so we put that in there as well. But
Yeah.
yeah, we cater for a lot of ladies on the street, and the women that I've met on the streets have been through some horrific times, horrific,
Yeah.
um, and of all ages as well. They battle getting raped of an evening. They battle people abusing them, etc., etc. So there's a lot that we work with.
I was um I was reading some information. I was trying to gather some statistics together because I like a statistic, but I couldn't find all that much. But what I did pick up on was reading a couple of articles. I've got one in front of me here. It's just entitled "Is there a link between addiction and homelessness?" But what kept cropping up was, and I'd never really thought about it, but you obviously hear about people on the streets are vulnerable. Obviously, they're very vulnerable to the public, really. Or maybe I could imagine late at night, uh, maybe over the weekend revelers. But these people who find themselves on the streets battling addiction, they're not of a clear mind, particularly very often during the day. They're either drunk or high,
Yeah,
potentially, and that makes them even more vulnerable to,
yeah,
an approach from either somebody who might want to cause them physical harm, or might want to take advantage of them in another way. And I read that in a couple of articles earlier, and it's something that never occurred to me. Obviously, these people don't have a wooden door with a bloody great lock on it to hide behind, do they? They are at the mercy of of people, the weather, and everything.
they definitely up against all the elements. Some of the guys that I work with, they get weed on when they're asleep, or they get things thrown at them. It'll be drunk people passing them, and they just throw them something. I've also come across a lot of weird stuff. Like there was a lady that we was looking after last year, and someone kept putting boiled eggs just in her sleeping bags and stuff at night time. Just like, obviously they're out to
Yeah,
um, torment her, and they're out to wind her up, but they just kept doing really weird stuff, like leaving boiled eggs and bottles of milk. It was just like not normal. It was definitely someone on a wind up, or leaving rotten eggs. It was just really weird stuff. People, I don't know what possesses people in their minds to do that. And in Croydon I think it was last year or the year before, they had a tent that was set on fire. Um,
really.
the person, it was quite bad for the person, but they set a tent on fire. Uh, and then all the rough sleepers were scared then, and the police were moving them on out of their local spots because the police were worried that someone was going to get set on fire again. They didn't know why it happened.
Yeah,
So they're definitely up against the elements. And what I get really frustrated sometimes because I can't do enough. And the people that I meet that are suffering addictions, and they get given like, this is something that I'm still trying to learn about myself. And I met someone that worked in a university, and they were studying addiction. So I absolutely pestered them and said, look, teach me this, because I wanted to learn about why.
yeah,
And the government and the councils and the doctors, they so easily give out the methadone subscriptions. But you'll go to the chemist, because I work with a guy, and every day he goes to the chemist, he gets his methadone subscription, but he still uses during the daytime. And it's
yeah,
just giving someone the methadone, and then you're not giving them any other guidance or any other help. Um, So they're going to be free to go and do whatever they're going to do. They haven't got the support to stop it. If it was your family member that was suffering addiction, you would sort of comfort them, guide them, keep your eye on them. But these guys, they get given a methadone. The government think that they're doing the right thing in order to get them off the drugs, but they're not supporting them in any way. They're not guiding them to stop it. They're just giving them something that's going to minimize it or hopefully get them off it. But then when they go out back onto the streets, they're open to the elements. They're doing the drugs. The drugs are around them. If everybody's doing the drugs, they're going to do the drugs. So there's not support for homeless people. And I get really upset and really frustrated that it's just, it's just sort of really forgotten about. And it stresses me out a little bit. A couple of weeks ago, I posted a little bit on social media, but I didn't want to say the whole thing. And like the guy that I'd been working with, he was sort of smoking heroin. And when I caught up with him last month, I took him for some food. We went for I think it was a McDonald's and a coffee, and we were just chatting like we normally do, because we have a catch up and I make it feel really like warm-hearted, and ask them how they're getting on, ask them about their family, ask them everything. So I create this really nice bond with him. He said, "Oh, look, Jack, I've started injecting." And then he was so open about it. He said, "Oh, look, I've started to inject into my thigh." And then I left him, and then I came back about an hour later. He's like, "Look, Jack, I've just picked up some drugs." He's like, "Do you want to learn about it? Do you want to see how it works?" And we stupidly we went to look, and like it was just a learning curve, and it was just something that I'd never seen before. And we watched it, and then I went home and I was just so upset. And because my best friend Adam, he sort of really helps me run the charity, and we do all our outreaches together. And he's sort of my listening ear, and he does all the organising for me, all the running around, and we do all our outreaches together in the evening. And we sat in the van on the way home, and he goes, "Are you all right?" And I just burst out crying, and I said, "I'm not." I said, "It's really affected me." And then we spoke about it, and I said, maybe at the end of each time we do an outreach, we just need to sit and talk, and then we can get anything off our chest so it doesn't start to affect us. Because at the end of the day, we're doing the right thing, but we're carrying this weight on our shoulders.
Yeah.
And I still couldn't sleep. And I was up all night thinking, going, how can I help this guy? What can I do? Like, he's a really lovely guy, but what can I do? This is just going to go down a path that's never ending. And the next day I had to phone a few people, like people that I know that do a little bit of counselling or that they've witnessed that type of thing. And I had to phone them and go, look, I can't get this guy off my mind. I've been crying, I'm upset. And it was just, for me, I work with loads of homeless people, and I've witnessed so many things that never normally bother me, but that would bother the average person. And this, I just couldn't get off my mind. And it was purely because of the fact that I can't do enough, and I want to do more to help it, but I can't. And I just sort of really helpless.
Yeah, I mean, I don't do the sort of work that you do. I mean, I write my blogs and I try and get my story of addiction and recovery out in a positive light. But I have a friend of mine. He was a guy I used to drink with 20 years ago, and he's an alcoholic. He wanders the streets most of the day, and I see him around my village quite often, probably 2, 3, 4 times a month. And I know I can't help him, and he's not. Well, his addiction is. He's been in the grips of it for years now, but I know from speaking to him, and I know from speaking to friends and some very close friends of his, he's not ready to receive help yet. But
No.
I think in my heart that I think he will probably end up dead before he beats his addiction. And if I see him around town, it will normally play on my mind for 2 or 3 days if there's anything I can do to help him. But sadly, you know, I've mentioned it to him a couple of times if he's ever considered sobriety, and just by his answers, you know, which are more denial than anything. But like you say, it certainly plays on the mind. But we keep doing what we do, don't we? So if someone finds themselves homeless, Jack, what is their, I don't know how to say it, what is their route to not be homeless? If they find themselves homeless and don't want to be, you know, I can imagine maybe some people walk out of a family home and adapt to a lifestyle of homelessness, but many people aren't there because they want to be. what is the route back to society for these people?
You can go to the council and you can go to various different charities, and they can start you on like a step process where you can go to like a halfway house, or they can get you emergency accommodation, and bits and pieces. But nowadays, because the list is so big and there's so many people in the same situation, that it's harder to get help than what it was many years ago. And the list for housing is difficult, and it can be a lengthy process. And that's why these people sort of get trapped. And like I said, like it goes back to addiction. A lot of people won't get the help if they're using. They won't get the offer of a house because they're using. Okay. But rather than just saying you can't have a house because you're using drugs, why can't we say, look, we can put you in a house, but we need you to go to this counselling. We need you to go to this rehab. We need you to check into this place every day. I've actually thought about it that it might sound a bit daft, but sometimes I think in my mind that homeless people are probably better off going to prison because they get the 3 meals a day, they get their shower, their clothing, they get drug help, they get mental health help, they get the opportunities to work again. And it's just like we've got prisoners in the prison system that are sort of treated better than what homeless people are.
Yeah, I mean, I watch enough sort of documentary television, and there's been a few in recent years inside sort of British prisons, and you'll regularly hear a prisoner interviewed, and he'll say, as soon as they let me out, I'll be doing my best to get back in. You know, it's safe in here. I mean, they are institutionalized, but it's safe, and like you say, it's warm to a point, it's comfortable to a point, and they certainly don't go hungry.
No.
So I mean, we sort of gone over it, but I was going to ask you, a couple of personal questions, and don't offer an opinion that's going to get you in any trouble, but are the government doing enough to help the homeless community? I mean, I think I know what your answer is going to be.
I would say no, but I don't want to knock anyone that is, or any government official. I don't want to knock them for what they do, because there will be organisations that do great help for the homeless. Yeah. But I think realistically we're not. As a community, we're not doing enough. As human beings, we're not doing enough. I always say, and I say this in every presentation I do, that if you see a homeless person and you don't have any money and you don't want to buy them a sandwich, just stop and just say, hello, you're right, how you doing? How's your day? Engage with that person, make them feel human again. Because if you sit outside the train station, you count how many people walk past. It can be hundreds during the day, even thousands at a busy train station. And these homeless people, they sit at a station and they might get 200 people walk past them before someone stops. And sometimes just the chat will make them feel so much more happier and boost their mood. So if you can't afford to buy a sandwich, or you don't want to buy a sandwich, then just stop, give a conversation. And I bet you can learn a lot from just talking to one rough sleeper. All right, don't be upset or disheartened if someone tells you to go away, or the first person that you try and talk to is not interested, but keep doing it and watch a relationship build with a rough sleeper. If there's a rough sleeper that you see at your train station every day, give them a shot, give them an opportunity, talk to them, build a relationship, chat with them, and they will appreciate that more than they will a sandwich. I work with a lot of guys, and I'll go say, do you want a sandwich? I go, no, I've been bought one 10 minutes ago. So people are doing the sandwiches, and there is kind-hearted people out there, but it's all well and good just chucking a sandwich on someone's lap and walking away, but stop and engage and chat and just make them feel good about themselves.
Yeah, well, that's answered my next question was going to be, is there anything we can do, is there anything we can do in our day-to-day lives to, help to help? And you've explained it perfectly. I mean, I was in Canterbury not so long ago with my daughter, last day of her half term, and I gave a homeless person in the underpass. I gave them a £10 note, and I always used to be the guy who'd buy. We used to have a rough sleeper outside our local co-op, and I always used to buy a sandwich and a can of Coke. And she was a drinker, and I knew from when I stopped drinking that the sugar cravings and stuff that go with it. So I used to buy a Coca-Cola and a sandwich. I did it. I have to be honest. I very rarely chatted with her. Or I didn't chat with her. I pretty much gave her the sandwich and walked off. But I gave this guy £10 the other day, and I got about 50 yards down the street and wondered if I'd made a mistake, because obviously being an addict myself, I worried that I may have obviously just given him the means to purchase something that might not be very good for him. But it's not wrong to give homeless people money, is it?
Oh yeah, I always say to people, like, I would stay away from giving money, because that way
Right.
you don't know where it's going. But if you feel that you want to give someone some money, then by all means give them money, because they might use it for something. They might buy something, or they might put it towards some accommodation. But I would always steer clear of it. I know that if you just give someone a tenner, it could go to waste. But you could go into Tesco, you could buy £10 worth of stuff. You could buy a pack of wet wipes, a sandwich, and a drink. Wet wipes and deodorant is so valuable to homeless people, because if they can't shower, you can give yourself a clean with a wet wipe, and you can make yourself a little bit fresher. So small things like a pack of wet wipes is a couple of pounds, and it can go a long way. So I'd always advise not to give money, but if people want to give money, then go ahead and do it. But I would never advise money. It was always
okay. No, that's
value.
good. I'm always learning. I mean, that's fantastic, Jack. I think we've covered with regards to your work that you do for the homeless. I mean,
Yeah.
I've covered everything that I've got written down here. Is there anything that you'd like to share with us before we sort of move on to a bit of a chat more? What we both share something else, greenkeeping. But is there anything you've got your big push? It just so happens to be my 4-year anniversary of sobriety, the 18th of December, and this will be your. This will be your. What number of big feed will this be for you then?
Our third or fourth? I can't remember.
Yeah.
It slipped me now because I'm thinking about other things. My mind's running. But I'm going to say fourth. Yeah, it's the fourth, because I've got 2 videos of previous years, and then the first year we didn't get a video.
Okay.
Just had some pictures. So yeah, this will be our fourth.
Yeah, and we will post all the links, all the social media links on the when we send this podcast out on YouTube and on Anchor, where I distribute my podcast, and then it goes on to Spotify and everything else. We'll post all the links. But if we've covered everything you're happy to there, shall we talk a bit of turf? Because I know that's another passion of yours.
Yeah, it was not the bane of my life. It's just it consumes the most hours of my life. But yeah,
I assume you're a Parkland golf course. So, do you have the ongoing battle with leaves? We don't where I am down on the coast, but
we're absolutely we're coming to the end of it now. The Oaks are holding on.
I was going to say the Oaks are normally the last to go.
Yeah, the Oaks are holding on. They'll probably still be going in January, knowing our Oaks, because we've got quite a few. But the rest is down, and we're sort of in the nitty gritty now of clearing out the copse and where all the leaves are falling, and picking up leaves and handballing, and so yeah, we're into the nitty gritty. So the boys have been working solid at the moment. So I've been treating them. I got some mince pies in the other day and some biscuits, and then this morning it was snowing, so they were blowing snow off the greens. So I said, right, I went to the cafe, bought them all some bacon rolls and some coffees to keep them nice and cool, warm. They were frozen and they looked blue in the face. So I thought I'd go. But
so let's go back to the beginning then. You talked about, you spent those 6 months on homeless, and you got taken in, and the person who took you in hooked you up with a job or helped you find a job. Was that greenkeeping?
So that was, I believe, I was working in the cemetery, doing just grounds maintenance, a bit of strimming. I would occasionally help out the grave diggers, just the general maintenance of a cemetery, tidying up, blowing, etc. And then that sort of job came to an end as contract changed over in the cemetery. And then I was stuck for a job, and I was looking on Croydon Advertiser, and my friend said, "Oh, there's a job there for greenkeeping. Like, give it a try. Like, it's a really good job." So I went to this interview as an apprentice at Purley Downs. And I went there and I didn't have a clue. I'd never stepped foot on a golf course before. And then I started working for a guy called Richard Webber. And he could sort of tell, and I told him sort of a little bit my story and what I'd been through over the last couple of years. And he sort of took me under his wing, and it was even to the point where he showed me how to do writing, basic things like writing, basic English, and really helped me out. And he sort of like, he gave me the drive, and I looked at him and I said, you know what, because he was a really good course manager and he was a really good team player, and he was a wicked guy to work for, and I looked up to him and I said, I want to be like him. And then that gave me the drive to become a course manager. So I'd done some years at Purley Downs. Then I went over to Addington Palace and became sort of the head mechanic / greenkeeper. And then I just dotted about at different clubs and I was gaining some experience. Then I took on a head greenkeeper role at a small 9-hole, but the budget was really low. It was only a couple of days a week, so it wasn't really pushing me in the direction that I wanted. So I stepped down and then became a deputy at Chipstead. And I was here for 4 years, and then Sam left sort of late summer. And then I was offered the position as course manager, and I've been course manager since, and I'm absolutely loving it. My dad always said to me, like, don't ever do a job that you wake up in the morning you hate because you won't enjoy it. And there's nothing worse than getting up for work and not wanting to do the job. And I wake up every day with a smile on my face, and I've got 5 wicked guys that now work for me, and they look up to me, and I want them to be happy. I want them to come to work with a smile on their face, and I want them to enjoy work. So now I'm looking at them as the way Richard Webber used to look at me, and pushing my career. So I look at these guys and I want them to go and do all the fun things that I've done. I've done some tournament experience at Glen Eagles and Wentworth, and I've really enjoyed that, and I want my guys to go forth and do the same thing. Sam Bethel was my boss when I was deputy, and back with the homeless stuff, the very first feed I was going to organise, I mentioned it to Sam, and he said, let's do it. He said, let me know what I can do, we can push you for it, and we can organise it. And then he nominated me for the Greenkeeping Award, Outstanding Achievement Award, and I didn't think I was going to win it. I got a phone call and said, you've been nominated for this award, you've been shortlisted. We went up to Harrogate, we done the welcome celebration, and then all of a sudden it was announced and I'd won the award. And I looked round and Sam had a grin from ear to ear on his face, and he was just so pleased, and I got a standing ovation, and it was just like he was proud of me. And Sam pushed me massively in the right direction and gave me some guidance on how to become a better manager and how to progress in my career with education and bits and pieces. So I've met some really good guys within the industry that I sort of look up to as mentors, and I've got guys that I can phone up now and ask them any problems. Like I met Craig Haldane at Glen Eagles. I've done some work for him, and I watched how he looked after his guys and how he run a team. I came away from Glen Eagles going, that's what I want to do. Like, I want my guys to look up to me like that. So I've met some wicked characters within the industry and people that push me through work and through the homeless stuff. So it really bonds well together because I've just met fantastic people.
And you were down, you took the lads to see Lee Sayers at the London Club the other day.
Yeah, went to see Lee.
Very good guy.
Yeah, very good guy. He's got a lot of time for Lee. I think he's got a lot of time for me as well.
Yeah,
to come do a cool walk. So
fantastic. I mean, I first bumped into Lee, actually just happened to be at the breakfast table at Harrogate 2012, I think. And we've sort of bumped into each other a few times. I went up to, with my boss, we went up to a roller demo at the London Club just before Lee took over there, actually. But Lee was there because, and it's always great to catch up with him. So you got a 5-man team working with you, and you push them. They're all sort of pushing them all through their sort of level 2s and 3s. Is that the plan?
So I got 2 new young lads who started in September, so they'll go to college next year. But my other 2 guys, my deputy's just finished his level 3, and then my other 2 guys, they're starting their level 2. And then next year my other 2 guys will start their level 2. So hopefully have a team of qualified greenkeepers. My lads are brilliant. They just get it done, and I try to create like this real family vibe within the team because you spend more time with the guys you work with than you do your own partners and families and kids. So I try to make it like a team, so we have a real fun environment. We do a lot of staff bonding and days out or nights out or what the idea is to do. Small things like going to the CAF every Friday as a team.
Yeah.
We used to do it with Sam, so I've carried it on, and
they'll appreciate that. They really will appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, I was learning from Phil Helm, and he said about just buying someone a can of Coke and a chocolate bar was a reward when they've been doing well. So club champs have got all their favourite sweets and chocolates and set them out on the table. And because I'm quite young and I'm quite young for a course manager, I was a bit worried to how the guys would react to me, because some of my guys are twice my age.
Yeah.
And the response from them has been fantastic as a team, and I just hope it keeps on pushing. And the results that we're putting out at Chipstead, and the way the course is, and how the course is being reflected to the members is a massive statement itself. And that's not just me, that's my guys who get up every day and they do the job that I ask of them, and the results that we're getting at the moment are fantastic. So I couldn't do it without my guys. So
no, fantastic. I mean, that's brilliant to hear. You're a true reflection of all that's good within the industry, and your work for the homeless community is second to none, and I'm sure they are immensely thankful for it, Jack. I think we've probably about covered everything, mate. 41 minutes we're up to, which is pretty good for a podcast. People won't want to listen to me for much longer. You have answered everything fantastically well. Is there anything else you'd like to go over while you're here?
No, I think that's it covered now. I'll probably start waffling now and
stop
your ear off.
Well, I will say thank you for your time, Jack. Thank you for all the work that you do, and I will make sure to include all the links to everything when we put this out. And of course, I will make a donation towards the big feed this year, and I would push everyone else to do so who is watching or listening to this. This will go out on YouTube as a video and as a podcast in audio form, so I'll have to make sure I include everything at the end. But Jack, I'd just like to thank you for your time and wish you all the best going forward, sir.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Cheers, mate. Hang on. Let's just stop recording, but we'll stay live. Stop.